you, Sham. Thanks for having me tonight.
Yeah.
I was looking forward when I got here because this room, I've done this room a couple of times. I've never seen it this busy. And then we take a break right before I go on, and half of these are all fucked up. So they don't know what they're missing. I've been doing comedy now for around about a year, and I absolutely love it. People ask me, why did you get into comedy? And the God's honest truth is I love attention. Okay? It's just, you're all looking at me right now, and this is what I live for in life. And I am thankful, even though half of the room have decided to leave, that you guys are all still here. I'm especially thankful for some of my friends that have come to join us tonight, because we've got Jake, who's my oldest friend.
Yeah.
We've got Josh, who's my best friend. And we've got Hannah, who's my most Welsh friend. She's come all the way from Wales to see me. That's not true, but that's how I'm choosing to take it tonight. Now, I don't normally do audience work, but it's something that I'm trying to sort of pick up. So I have been watching as I've been going and learning a few things about everyone. It's one of the things that I love about doing local comedy, like mainly because no one nationally will book me. But with local comedy, it's great because the acts get interrupted by jazz music. You get history lessons. The MC is a bit of a wild card at times. That's why I love it. Somebody genuinely wants to record a very heartfelt message to his dad, and we're all like, fuck off. Yeah. But this is why I love this kind of thing, and I meet people, speaking to people. So a bit of a sidetrack. Laura, is it the florist? I'm a funeral director. We'll talk business afterwards. Right. So the best floral arrangement that I've ever seen at a funeral, because you see mum, dad, granddad. Just said dickhead, and I was like, I really want to know like the story behind that. Like, did people genuinely hate this guy that much that they've turned him to his funeral, or is that like a loving nickname? So yeah, I've got a bit of a background of going to a lot of funerals because I'm from an Irish Catholic family, so there's like 400 of us. Actually, recently found out that my Catholic primary school was one of those schools that had. The rack, that dodgy concrete. So I was lucky to make it out of there alive, to be honest. Especially some of those priests. But when I was a kid, I remember once we had to go to a funeral in Ireland because, like I said, Irish Catholics, there's hundreds of us in the family. And my granddad, who genuinely was my inspiration for everything I do in comedy, my granddad said, we have to go to Ireland and we need to go tomorrow. And we were like, why? And he went, because it's John's funeral. And I went, Grandad, who's John? And he went, you don't know him. Well, why have I got to go to his funeral then? I was like 8 years old, I had much better things to be doing with my weekends. So we went to Ireland, we flew to Dublin, and then we drove for about 2 or 3 hours, because in Ireland, if it's not in Dublin, it's 2 or 3 hours away. So just set your expectations there. It's literally Ireland, it's like Dublin, everywhere else. So we drove for 2.5 hours, got to this church, sat there for the service, sat there, then we stood up, and we sat down, then we stood up, and then we knelt down, because, Catholic. And then we went to the graveside, and it was so emotional, as funerals tend to be. People were crying, people walked up to the widow, my granddad went up to the widow and had a lovely chat with them. And then we went back to their house. We were there for about an hour and a half. I didn't really want to be there. And then, after that hour and a half, my granddad walked up to us, walked up to me, walked up to my mum, walked up to my brother, and he said to us, we're at the wrong funeral. He's like, are you kidding me? I went, yeah. But I didn't know him. But the quiche was fucking lovely, wasn't it? We literally got all the way to Ireland to eat someone else's food, right? And yet this, 2 weeks later, my granddad had the balls to then ask us if we could go to Ireland to go to another funeral. And when we asked him whose funeral is this, granddad, he went, I think this one is John's. I wasn't sure last time. I don't think my granddad had a friend called John. I think he just wanted to go to Ireland to eat in someone else's kitchen. It was a saucy old gig, my granddad. We called him watching porn more times than I ever really care to remember. Once, when we were having the council come around to assess his house for like his assisted living things, like all those railings that they use. And we were sitting there talking to a social worker, and he just got up and put the telly on, and Babe Station was on. Now, has anyone ever watched Babe Station? at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Woo!
They don't bring their A game at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's also worth saying that my granddad, a very little Irish man, who looked exactly like the old man from Up, I should say as well, he was stood in front of the telly, right? Not sat down, he was stood there. Mike stands the telly, I'm my granddad. Like I said, he was a little fella. I don't know how this got on. She's got cracking tits. In front of the social worker. One other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about tonight is I want to confess to something bad that I did once. First of all, give me a cheer if you've ever done something like that's so bad that you've not wanted to talk about it for like 10, 15 years after it's happened.
Yeah!
Right, now give me a cheer if you've decided to confess to that on stage at a comedy show.
Yeah.
So this is why we're comedians. We love the attention. We don't care how bad the thing was. I'm going to tell you guys the story of the time that I stole money from a homeless man. The room sank a little bit there. So I was 15 years old, and I was doing work experience, and I went into town on the bus, and my mum and dad gave me £2 coins for that day, because they didn't trust me with money. Ironically speaking, I'm now 30 years old, and they still do not trust me with money. This might be why. So £2 coins. One for the bus there, one for the bus back. I got off the bus, saw a homeless guy lying on a bench, and I went, I'm feeling quite generous. Put £2 next to him. Didn't want to wake him up. He was lying there, he might have had a rough night. So I put £2 next to him. And then about 2 or 3 minutes later, I realised I needed that £2 to get home. And I thought, how the hell am I going to do this? I can't ask him for the money back and say, I need the money to get home. You can't say that to a homeless man. You automatically come off as being like the worst person around. But when I got back, he was still lying there, and I thought, okay, if I'm crafty here, I can get my money back. Now looking back, I could have just walked around and stood in front of him, but I've decided to lean over the bench. Also, it really stinks, so at this point I'm like, got the £2, been very careful not to touch him, put it in my pocket, and then I went to do my work experience at the building behind me. Now, you might think that's the worst part of the story. The worst part of the story is what happened 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, when I looked out the window in the office and the paramedics were zipping him up. I stole money from a dead homeless guy. In all fairness, I donated the money first, so, at heart I'm a good person, just practically not very good with money. Weirdly, it was the first bad financial decision that I ever made. And all I could think about was, I'm so glad that I took that £2 back, because if the police had done it for fingerprints, I would be the suspect in potentially the murder of a homeless man. Right? Now, and at this time as well, my dad was a serving police officer. And I was like, I was going to be embarrassing to the family. I was going to lose his job over it. So I was obviously very, very, very scared. So when I went home that day, my mum and dad were like, oh, how was work today? I was like, it's fine. Did you do anything? Why did you ask? Anything? Did you learn anything fun? No. I didn't kill any homeless people. Just covering the bases there. And I want to finish on just one more thing. So, first of all, Mr. Sham Zaman, who we all agree has got one of the best names in comedy. Yeah. Now, every time I see Sham, he tells me how much he loves my name, Frank Stone.
Fuck yeah. Fucking hardcore porn, baby.
Yeah. So imagine, you see the name Frank Stone on paper and this turns up. So, I'm 30 years old, as I say. Now, that means that in the 90s, I was a child called Frank. Do you know how hard that was? I remember once I was in the doctor's when I was about 5 years old, right? And then the doctor comes over the speaker, goes, Frank Stone to the green door, and everybody looked at my granddad. And then I stood up and I heard someone go, oh, it's a shame that, isn't it? Also, my parents gave me the druggiest name in the world, Frank Stone. I have never touched a drug in my life, but my name suggests otherwise. Throughout school, all I read was talk to Frank, talk to Frank, talk to Frank. Which is very, very ironic because no one spoke to me. Which is why I need your attention, which is why I'm thankful for all the love you've given me tonight. And thankful, Sham, for having me. Goodbye.